Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. It's 3 o'clock. Hopefully, everybody is live. Let's make sure we're live here on the stream. Yeah, it looks like we're live. Good. Welcome, everybody. It's Career Happy Hour. It's 3 o'clock Pacific time. And no matter where you're joining from, I suspect that it's happy hour. And this is an opportunity as a community for us to get together and talk about what's happening in the market, the job market that is, from a company and from a candidate perspective, and really see how we can bring sides together. If you don't know me, I'm Andrew Beach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals communicate value to find awesome opportunities faster, whether they're working or not. And that's through a pragmatic process of branding, planning, and effective networking. If you need that sort of support, then by all means, there is a link in the description to complete an application. If you would like to consider working with me, just fill out the application and we'll schedule time and we'll talk one-on-one offline so that you can see whether or not the service that I provide is something you're interested in. But it's not why I do this. I do this so that I can offer value to those people in my network and to see how I can help solve some problems like, right away. So if you're joining, please, by all means, put your LinkedIn profile in the chat. This community serves each other. If you put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, what you're saying is it's okay to reach out to me, and I actually want you to, because I will say yes to a connect request and a conversation offline. Networking is hard enough, and the conversion rates aren't very high. In fact, I was just looking at some of my conversion rates the other day on outreach, and just getting yes to somebody saying yes to a connect request, whether it's I put personal messages with all of my LinkedIn requests, but I found it's about 40%. 40% will say yes to a connect request. That means that not everybody is saying yes to a connect request, first of all. And second of all, of those 4 out of 10 that said yes to the connect request, how many actually said yes to a conversation? Well, it's less than one. It takes probably 20 or 30 outreaches in that capacity to get one person to say yes after, 12 people. So I sent out 30, 12 people would say yes to a connect request. And one of those people, 1 out of 12, and I'm talking cold outreach here. So don't think that my numbers are unique or in some way weird, but it's about one out of 12 out of that. So it's 1 out of 30 on cold outreach will say yes to a conversation. And that means it takes a lot of outreach and maybe a lot of follow-up to get people to say yes and actually schedule time on the calendar to have a network conversation. And what this community exists to do is that if you're here and you put your LinkedIn profile in the chat or the comments or whatever your platform you're joining on, we're on YouTube, we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you put your information in there, what you're suggesting is that it's okay for people to reach out to you. And when they do, you will say yes to an offline conversation, whether that's on the phone or by Zoom, whatever you and that person prefer. The other part of this is questions. If you have questions related to career, leadership, anything of that capacity, you can certainly put that into the comments box and I will look at those and address those. Now, I recognize that some people don't want to make those public. So if you want to share an anonymous question, then by all means, you can click the link in the description. Yes, it is a live coaching link, but it gives you access to the back end of Restream, my streaming service, and it allows you to put a question in here. You don't have to put your name in, just put an anonymous. Here's my question. And there is a private chat. You can see it down at the bottom of the screen when you join in the green, what I call the green room. It's actually, I guess the dashboard here is blue, but in the green room, you'll be able to put your question in there and people won't know that you're asking it. That happened last week. I answered a question privately and it worked out pretty good. So that's that. We do have live coaching. So if you're brave and you want to come on and you want me to answer your question, your specific need, and you want to get some exposure to the community, this survives. These streams are actually recorded and they're put out there. And it's interesting how many people actually go back and view these after the fact. Hundreds of people. And you could go back, you could go to my YouTube channel actually and take a look at all of the streams. I leave them up there unless there was some technical challenge or the audio didn't come through. Then I just make those private. But to a certain extent, that's what we're talking about here today. So I'm thinking, this week was Groundhog Day, and for those of you who aren't familiar, Groundhog Day is when Punxsutawney Phil comes out of his little box and he decides whether or not there's going to be early spring or 6 more weeks of winter. And he saw the shadow and went back in and said, 6 more weeks of winter. But the idea of Groundhog Day got me to thinking that sometimes, when we're in a career process and we're trying to forward our efforts or in some way make ourselves known to the public, whether we're working or not, it often feels like Groundhog Day, that you're getting up and you're doing the same things over and over again. You're making applications, you're reaching out to people, you're trying to make something stick. And the outcome tangible that everybody wants is an interview. I think we all know that to be true, that nothing happens in a hiring process until you've had an interview. And even then it's not over, because part of the interview might be your follow-up process with that employer and how you approach that. And so I've coached a lot of people through those transitions, and the follow-up isn't something that's readily known or accessible, or even knowing whether or not you're getting the right feedback, positive or negative. Feedback is still feedback. And the absence of feedback isn't helpful. I agree. It's still feedback. And we only control our daily activities. And this is something that I've had to realize in the 4 or 5 career transitions I've been in my career, some by choice, some not, is that I don't control the process. I'm in control of my preparation. I'm in control of, how many people I meet, how many applications I make. There's only so many day-to-day tasks that I have control over. And it feels like, the word of the year, or the word of last year? Anyway, somebody came out and said, well, the word of 2021 is resilience. Well, in job search, if anybody's ever been in a full-blown job search, either through, some sort of corporate layoff or termination for cause or whatever, where you didn't have employment, man, there's a lot of motivation there to find something. And to not have feedback is really kind of shocking. And not getting offers, at least today, is kind of shocking. And that can really play with people's mindset that, hey, there must be something wrong with me. No, that's never the case. The case is that they selected somebody else. They did not reject you. They accepted somebody else. And often, I know it's hard to process, but often it feels like we're being rejected in favor of somebody else. And that's not true either. Is they're not favoring somebody else. They felt in some capacity that person better met their needs than what you had to offer. That's a fit question. And that can be addressed sometimes by you being more articulate in how you express yourself. And how you express yourself is more important than what you express. If you look at your interview performance, would you award yourself an Academy Award? So it's very easy when you're coaching people, and I've gone through this a lot, as to where they may be having challenges based on conversion to valued outcome, valued milestone. So initially, the valued outcome is an interview. Now, that doesn't mean an interview for a job. It could be a dialogue with a peer or a hiring manager. That's still an interview, even though you call it informational interviewing. It's actually more organic and natural to do that. But the outcome tangible to any activity is a conversation with a human being that's got a pulse and potentially power or influence to get you hired somewhere. Handling those conversations and those interactions take many forms. It could be a network conversation, a group event, an online application. Doesn't really matter. The activity tangible leads to an outcome, milestone, achievement. What would you call that? So some of these are primary activities that lead to an outcome. And the outcome is often something that, we think that we control. We don't. We don't control the fact that people will say yes or no to those conversations. We only control the outreach, the process up front, and we know whether or not those methods are working for us based on how many interviews we get. And so if we take, for example, I apply to 10 jobs and I get one interview, great. Now I've got 1 out of 10. I know the effectiveness of that method for me. If I reach out to 10 of my former colleagues who I know really well, and those 10 colleagues, 5 of them say yes to a conversation this week, I know that I'm getting 50% conversion on those conversations. Now, that doesn't mean that's the end for either of those situations. That's the beginning. What do I mean by that? Well, whatever it takes to get to a point at which that company can make a decision on hiring you or not. And sometimes the initial application leads to a HR phone screen, leads to a hiring manager interview or a panel, and then an offer phase, right? So there's a general process for hiring people. And that's one way to do it. That's not the only way. You might have to do 4, 5, 6, 7 interviews. Each company is different. And it's a tragedy these days it takes so long to hire people. I think what was the old adage? Slow to hire, slow to fire. And the other one is quick to hire, quick to fire. So, and there's probably variations of that saying, but I see it as, those companies that are really slow to hire are also the ones that are slow to fire, and they're not very agile and they don't do a lot of creative thinking anyway. And then on the flip side, the people that are quick to hire and quick to fire create a survival of the fittest Darwin kind of culture. And it's not true all over the board, but that's just been my experience. And so when we're talking about these different activities, initially it's conversion to conversation. And that could be an interview, an informational interview, whatever that looks like. And then after that, the quality of that presentation or interaction will determine whether or not you get funneled into or funneled out of the hiring piece of that equation. And that means you may have to have several conversations with multiple stakeholders inside the organization, just like you would, I suppose, if you were selling something to that company, because you truthfully, you are, right? You're selling your expertise, your education, all the tools you have at your disposal, your knowledge of a particular domain. You're trading all of that in exchange for compensation. That is a sales process. Now, the hope is that from the organization side that the amount of money they invest in you is less than the value that you deliver to that organization. And when that ceases to be the case, then your employment there may be at jeopardy. And so some of the times you need to go back and maybe take a look at a time when you felt at the organization you were working for, you felt, you know what, it feels like I'm not offering any value here. It's time for me to go, and finding an opportunity then rather than when it's too late. I mean, it's just a learning process. I've been in those situations too, so I'm not immune to anything that I'm talking about. What I'm encouraging people to do is evaluate, see where you can do better, and work at it. And don't ever stop. Don't ever stop until you find the right opportunity for you. And I can assure you that, thank you for putting those links in there in the comments and the welcome messages. So thanks everybody for that. I'll get to those in just a minute. But if you have specific questions about your situation or something you'd like to learn more about, please, by all means, place those in the comments box. It's going to make my ability to help and support you and make this a more, how would you say it, attractive community to other people that want to be a part of it. I think that's really what it's all about, is spreading the word. And if you feel inclined, you don't have to do this publicly, of course, but if you feel inclined, you can certainly share this broadcast out on your favorite social channel and decide for yourself if that's something you want to do privately or personally. Sometimes it's through a direct message or whatever. It's really entirely up to you. So we talked about the initial phase. The conversion was to a conversation. The second phase is conversion into a hiring process. Now, there's lots of ways to get to both of those, and not any two people experience the same thing, even at the same companies, even though they may have these really well-developed systems in place to hire people. It may not be that they actually use those same systems consistently across the board in all groups and all teams. We're talking about human beings here, and human beings make mistakes. They do. And sometimes we feel like that organizations and the people that represent them on the hiring side shouldn't make mistakes. We're talking about people's futures, about people's livelihoods, and make no mistake that many organizations take that stuff very seriously. But when there's people involved, it's really so much easier. Let's see. Jeannie's got something here. This medium's going much easier. LinkedIn was really choppy. Glad to have options. Jeff says he likes your background. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I'm in my condominium outside of the Apple World headquarters in Cupertino. So I don't know if you can see. Well, I guess it'd be over there. I think that's the. Anyway, I'm in Cupertino. At least my background's in Cupertino. Yeah. So I don't presume for a moment that LinkedIn and Microsoft have the video stuff figured out. I do it through Restream, and Restream is a partner of LinkedIn, and it isn't always the best streaming experience, I can assure you. Good, and thank you. It looks like Ali is here. Idan is here. Thank you, Stephen. Good to see you from Massachusetts. Let's see here. What are you saying? Hello from Massachusetts. Where has it been a day of snow, sleet, and rain? Oh, God bless you. I hope you're staying well, Stephen. Yeah, we had our share of snow, sleet, and rain in the last month that I could do without it. And here in Oregon, at least in our area, we mostly just get rain, and it just depends on the only thing that changes is the temperature. So expect rain. The only thing that's different is the temperature. And in this case, we actually did get snow, sleet, and rain, and it wasn't very exciting or fun for a couple of weeks there. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking out my window here in the office and seeing those things, but it's certainly not something that I appreciate as much as others do. Unless I'm on vacation. If I'm on vacation and I'm going to a place that has snow, that might be different. So Groundhog Day. How do we stay committed? Committed to our job search and to our seeking. Part of the thing that I think a lot of the people that I've coached have had in common is that they really believed in something so strongly that they stuck with it. And so whatever that is, I've always had interest in a couple of areas. One is product development, making new products, talking to customer, being voice of the customer, and those sorts of things, and evaluating what's working and what's not, because that's just something I like to do. I like to do qualitative research or understand people and what makes them tick. And it's based on all the years that I've had in sales and the coaching that I do now. I just appreciate that interaction with the customer to provide them better product or service moving forward. And then the other area I've really had interest in is experience management. Now, that sounds like something that's really kind of maybe off the wall, but the concept of experience management is something that was made new to me, I think about, 2 years ago. I started looking at a company called Qualtrics, and although Qualtrics is now owned by SAP and is a technology tool, the concept is that the system would manage any interaction you had with a human being. And to me, that was very compelling, because whether you were a customer or a candidate or an employee or a vendor or a contractor, it didn't matter who you were as a human being. The tool is designed to manage and curate your experience with that organization and to solicit feedback on how well that relationship is working or not for you. And these listening tools aren't, I think, anything new. I think the idea is it hasn't been done across all of those, how would you say, avatars or user journeys. I mean, call them whatever you want. But it's not something that a lot of organizations think about holistically across all of those channels in an integrated way. and that's why that was so compelling to me, because it's important that every interaction that an organization have with a human being has some kind of a measurement or a way to know whether or not it's beneficial. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of products and services that I appreciate, but when you go to apply to that company to see if that's something you want to do, you want to work for that company, your impression of that product or service changes by how you're treated as an applicant, or perhaps somebody looking to network inside that organization and learn more about how they're able to deliver such great product or service. They can be influenced, just as if, you were a contractor working at that company instead of an employee. Guess what? You're getting a different experience. And you may feel, because you're a contractor, that you're not valuable. That's a very common feeling, that you're just a resource. You're not an asset. Does that make sense? That as a resource, you're someone to be managed, or cost contained, or, in some way, people will look at you differently and treat you differently because you're not an employee. And I've seen this in many organizations where they, oh, that's so-and-so, he's a fill in the blank with whatever they call their temporary workers or their contractors. Or this is so-and-so, they're a full-time employee, so they get this special badge. It's just rather, I know there's security behind it. I understand the reason why there's different colored badges. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great way to segregate people and to make them feel like they're not part of the family. And that's what a company really is a community or a family. I know I get off track about these things, but so those are a couple of things that I've always had interest in, and always looking to gain more expertise and know which companies are doing that well, or interested in doing that well, but haven't done so yet. What tools and capabilities are out there. And so it's drawn me actually to a company that I never considered. I would maybe even, ponder working for, and that being Microsoft. So, I mean, it would be rather ironic that a company that I never thought I would work for would be one that I actually do, because they happen to have the tools or technology or the systems that I'm interested in working in. And so there's so much to be said for following your curiosity. And if you have curiosity about something, then peel back that onion until you get to the inner layers to see, what is this all about? I just, curiosity is something that I think allows you to have some sort of resilience, because if you're not curious about, oh, I wonder what it's like to work there, I wonder what tools and resources are available to people on these kind of teams. If you have any kind of experience and you've worked at many different companies, you know that some companies do things well and other companies do other things well. Not any one company is going to be 100%, but unless you know what it is that you excel in, and the areas that you have expertise, or that you have preference, then how are you going to know? How are you going to even know that organization is right for you? Now, that's a decision to make. Each of us has a decision to make on which companies we'll work for and which ones we won't. And that has more to do with the people in it and how they treat each other than the actual name of the company itself. And we can actually discern that in our interactions, in our informational interviews, in the actual interview process, by asking questions. Just recognize and look around. How are people treating each other? Do they have these qualities that I find really valuable in many of the employers I've worked for? But I have this one area that I haven't been able to find something yet. And it's something really important to me to have this thing in my next employer. That to me is a little more intriguing to uncover things. And so how do we keep that intensity, the intensity of the hiring process? And sometimes we need to play, I suppose, little games with ourselves to get activity done that we know we have to do, but we just don't like it. They said once that I don't remember where I heard this. I think it was from Dan Miller or somebody, but the definition of success is doing what almost everybody is unwilling to do. That's the definition of success. A definition of sex, not the definition of success. Let's be clear. It's a definition of success. And it made sense to me. It made sense to me that, there's many people that are willing to do the networking. And there's so many more people that are unwilling to do the networking activity consistently enough to get the results that they need. And so they just give up. And it's not uncommon. I see this, that people will say networking doesn't work. And then I'll ask them, well, how many people have you talked to in the last 30 to 60 days or a couple of months? Oh, I've talked to maybe 2 people. 2 people. Okay. And so you think 2 people is a large enough sample size for you to make that blanket assessment? Or is it something that is so monumentally challenging and difficult for you that it's hard for you to get up the motivation to do it? And that's not uncommon. That's not unique to anything that's worth doing, by the way, is hard to do. But we know we should do it. So as Nike says, just do it. And keep hanging in there. Keep hanging in there. That's what I'd say. So if there's any questions, that's great. I'm happy to answer. Put those in the comments. If you have contributions to make, I'm welcome to share that out. If you would like to, you're more than welcome to put any questions you have in the comments, or come in the back end through the live coaching link. Maybe I should grab that. Or, I haven't done any LinkedIn profile reviews in a while. I'd be happy to review somebody's LinkedIn profile. If somebody's up for that, I'd be happy to do that and just give you my 2 cents. I did notice today, finally, that the rolling updates did hit my profile. And so I noticed some really interesting things have changed in terms of what's displayed on my profile. And they're all positive, all positive. However, I think it's going to force. So maybe I'll do a session on that next week, or I suppose we could even do it now. Let me see. I'll get my my window open here. Let me get to my profile page. Yeah, the funny thing about going to my profile page is you can watch the live stream in the background. And honestly, I don't know why it's having so many issues. Oh, it's not showing up on my profile. That's weird. Huh. So if you're joining by LinkedIn, can you confirm for me the quality of the stream on a scale of like 1 to 10? If you can confirm the quality of the coaching scale of 1 to 1, or quality of the live stream. And then I'll go in there and I'll provide some links here. Join me live, or submit confidential question. Okay, good. There we go. Do I have any? Let me see. Let me copy this and I'll put it over on the other chat here. There we go. Okay. Scale of 1 to 10. If you're on, for whatever reason, I don't know why this is. Let me refresh. Reload the screen. I'll see if I'm getting anything better on here now. Yeah, it looks like the let me turn that off. Yeah, it looks like the quality on LinkedIn isn't the best. So I apologize for that. I don't control. What I'm seeing on my side is 720p HD. It looks pretty good, but not everybody is getting that same experience. And I think that LinkedIn has rolled out these updates 9 to 10 on mobile. Okay, so mobile's doing much better. That makes sense because LinkedIn is indeed investing more on the mobile experience. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you some of the changes that have come up. Let's see, share screen. There it is, share. Let's get rid of these. All right, there we go. Okay, so here we are on my profile page. And so this part is actually pretty much the same. You will notice though that interestingly enough, when we're talking about the live stream, it actually appears in the background image. So if you see me and then that screen and maybe an echo or whatever, then that's great. So most of this is pretty much the same. Now what's changed is they've done away with the dashboard. And so this right here, where it says suggestions for you, used to be called the dashboard. And so they'll provide things here, regardless of how well developed your profile is. They'll constantly be saying, hey, you should add this or you should add that. So I find it helpful, especially if you don't have these things on your profile, then they'll give you some suggestions. And then there's analytics. Now, analytics are private to you, but that's partially true. They're private to you and to LinkedIn. LinkedIn sees these things. They're obviously curating these things. And so you can see here the number of profile views I've gotten, post views, and search appearances, and then resources. I mean, this is if you have, I've got creator mode because I sell products and services on LinkedIn. I've activated that. If you want to learn about that, you can certainly go into the help section on LinkedIn. It's not hard to identify that. But it's saying here 5 resources. Let's see what it says. My network, activity, my items, and salary insights. So that's interesting. So they've truncated that section. So let's go back if it'll allow me. There we go. Oops, I guess I went too far. Let's go back to the profile page. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's scroll down here. Okay, so here is the interesting change that they made. Now, there was an issue with how the featured section showed up. It showed two tiles, and then it showed like a half a tile. And so they've changed a couple things here to actually make the 3 tiles fit in one display. And so as you scroll across, it'll be 3 tiles each time. They also put in here whether it's a link and how long it's been on here, 3 weeks, 5 years, right? So I published that 5 years ago, 5 years ago. Okay, that's when I added it. So I don't know if you will see that on your side, but I definitely see it on my side. Activity has totally changed. So activity used to be just this really truncated section. Now it's actually expanded, more looking like the native feed that you would see on the LinkedIn homepage. The about section. The about section used to be 4 lines, I think, by default. Now it's just 3. So before you have to click see more. Now here is where the big changes are coming in. Some of those were just minor edits, but the big change that I see is every single role in experience is now homogeneous. Let's just put it that way. It used to be the first role here in experience had more information. It was more prominently displayed. Now it's not. And you now have 2 lines before you have to see more. Now this is a good thing. In my estimation, this is a really good thing. Why? Because many people did not see the see more link here, and it's still gray and it's still hard to see, but it's easier to get to the bottom of the profile in terms of your experience in education. And for those who want to see, they can see, and this is offset a little bit better by that. Now, the thing that is kind of, I believe, disappointing is I don't see any more here when you attach things. Oh, it doesn't. Okay, so they say see more, but then there's no see less. Okay, so you can't collapse it back down. So once you open it, it's open. That's interesting. Okay, so now that it's open, and then same with education. So this whole section that I had here was really long. And so that's been truncated and somewhat homogenized. You see how I can attach things here? I did have some, I believe I had some attachments up here and they're gone now. So I may have to go back in and re-enter those, but you may want to look at your profile and do the same. And then I have my volunteering section, skills, pretty much the same. Although the volunteering section is truncated as well. So it looks like the standard is, here's what I did, here's when I did it, and 2 lines of information before you have to click the see more option. So when I was doing this before, this volunteer section wasn't truncated. It looked just like this. Now it's more standardized. Okay, and this is a little nicer. It doesn't show you all the people's faces next to this anymore. I think it used to. Doesn't do that anymore. So all the people that you get skills endorsements from would show up here. And here's another kind of big change is that the recommendations, there used to be a number next to each one. They've now moved that to the bottom of the section. So the number that I've received is 39. It used to be up here in the top and you could see 3 received and 3 given and know that those were the exact same people by toggling back and forth. Then you would know that that there's an issue. Anyway, so as I scroll down, you'll see now. So this is used to be called the accomplishments section, and everything used to be condensed into one area. And so now they've broken it out, and they're now highlighting your courses, your projects, your test scores, which in my case were just assessments, languages, etc. So every section in there will now get some real estate on the profile. And that's the way the profile page actually used to be. And you could move sections around. So I could take test scores and push it up three columns, or push it up far up the profile page. You can't do that part anymore, but it looks like you can absolutely add those. So I wonder what happens when I add a section to the profile. Yeah, so this is all changed now too. So there's now core sections of the profile, which is education, position, and skills. They're considering that core. And I would agree with that. I would agree with that, that you want to have at minimum on your profile a replication of your resume. I wouldn't leave it that way, but it is where I would start. And I would call those the core options. And then it'll tell you these are areas that they recommend you add. And these are probably more related to branding, personal branding. So a featured section and all these different things. And then down here, of course, you have additional sections. So this look and feel is actually much better in my mind than what we had before. So kudos to LinkedIn for really improving this user experience. So what was I going to go back and look at? Well, I mean, the other part of this is if I didn't have, I wonder, where's my about section? There it is. Okay, so I can edit here, but how do I add that? Is that an option here? Core section, add education, add a position, add skills, recommended, add featured. Let's see what happens. Okay, it takes me to a new user interface here. All right, so that isn't what I was looking for. I was trying to see how I would add. Let me go ahead and copy my about. I'm going to do a little testing here. I'm going to edit this. And then I'm going to copy this section. Actually, I'll copy it. I'll cut it and then save it. See what happens. Okay, save was successful. Now what's the deal? Okay, you see it disappeared. So I wonder now that it's gone, now it's saying, hey, here's your suggestions. You need to complete one step to achieve All-Star. Write a summary. So that's the about section. So now that I've removed it, it's telling me to add it and I'm no longer an All-Star. So this is LinkedIn gamifying the data that you put into their system. So know that you're not required to put any of this into the system. And so I will go here and add section. And I'll look at the core sections, and now about is here. So it appears that once you add the about section, it disappears. Okay, so I will paste this back in and I'll click save. and we'll move on with our day. All right. Well, that was fun. hopefully you all got something out of that. You know, it's always kind of fun to do an update on what LinkedIn is doing with their platform and trying to make it a better experience for us as users of it and that sort of thing. I don't see any other questions here, so I will call it a day. I do appreciate your attendance here. Please spread the word about our career happy hour. I think it would be really helpful if you invited 1 or 2 people for next week. I think we're going to have next week. We were going to do it today, but there was a scheduling conflict. But next week, we're going to talk with Terry Smith about what's going on in the HR world from a company perspective. And so as a coach, I'm always looking for different, unique perspectives. And Terry often has been capable of doing that for us. So look forward to that. And we'll certainly see you guys next Friday for a career happy hour, 3:00 Pacific time. Every day I'm alive and able to do the stream in town, that sort of thing. And I think I've got a pretty good track record of showing up. So take care, everybody. Be well. Have a great weekend.